Good morning, Ian Crouch with your 8:30 Hunter News Update. It's hoped Hunter public sector workers will soon receive pay rises above the wage cap. The state government has announced it will end the public sector cap by September. Labor has been under pressure to move faster on its election promise, but 100 days in, it's now confirmed the move. Treasurer Daniel Mookie says they now have the measures in place to be able to afford bigger pay rises for frontline workers.
We've frozen politician pay. Secondly, we've frozen the pay of the entire senior executive service. Those two things alone is roughly $400 million. In addition to that, we're cutting down on consultants.
Newcastle police suspect an early morning bushfire at Merriweather Heights was deliberately lit. Firefighters from Merriweather Fire Station were called to an area of bush alight on Gun Club Road just before 6 yesterday morning. They took about an hour to extinguish the blaze. Newcastle police are appealing for witnesses or anyone with dashcam footage to come forward. The state government is set to start work on repairing the public housing system. The move comes as maintenance concerns and affordability concerns have been raised across Charlestown. Charlestown MP Jodie Harrison says supply of private and public housing needs to improve.
To ensure that people who can't afford private rentals at all can access safe and secure housing, and also working people like nurses and police and teachers can afford to live near where they work, which is so often not the case at the moment.
Renowned surgeon and Newcastle University professor Dr. Kelvin Kong has been named the 2023 National NAIDOC Person of the Year. As an ear, nose and throat specialist, Dr. Kong, who's a proud Warramai man, has dedicated much of his work to addressing hearing loss in young Indigenous children, which he says is often at chronic levels, especially in remote communities. Dr. Kong hopes to use his award as a platform to speak about ear disease in Australian children. House prices in Newcastle and Lake Macquarie are continuing their upward trend, with a lack of stock driving the increase. New data out today from CoreLogic shows the two LGAs have seen their fourth consecutive monthly rise through June of 1.3%. The median house price in Newcastle and Lake Macquarie now sits at $850,345. House prices in the Hunter Valley recorded a slight drop in June of 0.1%, with the median price standing at just over $689,000. HSC students in the region are being offered a helping hand in the lead up to trial exams. Headspace Newcastle will host a series of workshops throughout the month for students struggling with exam stress and school pressures. Community Development Officer Byron Williams says students struggling should know they're not alone.
The more the merrier. I think one of the strengths of a program like this is recognising that we're all in the same boat. You know, there's a lot of young people who are going through stress. I think that, if you see another young person who's going through the same situation, you feel a little bit better about it.
2NURFM Sport.
Knights coach Adam O'Brien has held on to his job for now after his side mounted a 66-0 dredging of the Bulldogs. Jackson Hastings and Phoenix Crosland both took out doubles, while centre Bradman Best claimed his first NRL hat-trick. Coach Adam O'Brien says Best had a productive pre-season.
Went through a period there where he copped a bit of flack for going to Bali and building a refugee place. So didn't let him, he's a young bloke, didn't let it bother him and cracked on with things, so I'm really happy for him.
Meanwhile, in Newcastle Rugby League, Northern Hawks are anxiously awaiting the Match Review Committee's decision on Scott Briggs' send-off in their 48-12 loss to Cessnock. And the Newcastle Falcons women's basketball side look to be on the road to the finals, edging out 2 wins in their weekend doubleheader, defeating Sydney Comets 71-50 before a narrow 77-74 victory over Norths. That's sport. I'm Jordan Regnus.
And the winning numbers in Weekend Lotto are 6, 7, 19, 21, 26 and 38, and the supplementaries are 13 and 36. And now you're up to date with the latest 2NURFM Hunter News.
Good morning, I'm Madeline Lewis with ABC News. This year's National NAIDOC Person of the Year hopes to use his platform to speak about ear disease among Australian children. Warramai man Kelvin Kong, who lives in the Hunter region, is a surgeon dedicated to researching the causes of ear diseases and finding effective interventions. More than 3.5 million people have some level of hearing loss in Australia, with young Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people having a much higher rate of ear disease than other children. Mr. Kong says he's excited to have won the award, but sad to be celebrating on the backbone of such poor statistics.
For me, it's really exciting that we'll be able to talk about this a bit more and try and influence the relevant policymakers, the hospitals and also governments to make sure that we're actually doing stuff to try and correct this disadvantage they have.
A local Indigenous councillor says NAIDOC Week is more important than ever this year, given the upcoming Voice to Parliament referendum. Newcastle Council is supporting citywide NAIDOC Week celebrations, which kick off today with a flag raising at Civic Park and then a march to the Newcastle foreshore. Wiradjuri woman, Councillor Deanna Richardson, says this week's historical and cultural celebrations will be particularly significant for Newcastle and the entire country.
It gives non-Aboriginal people that opportunity to start to ask questions about what this means, why it's important to us, why it's necessary to sort of heal the country going forward.
An Upper Hunter elder says he's hoping to expand a school program that's giving dozens of First Nations students the opportunity to learn to play the didgeridoo. Bijara man Uncle Richie Lawton runs classes at primary schools in Scone and Muswellbrook. He'll be performing at NAIDOC events with his students this week. Uncle Richie says the boys are keen to continue the program once they start high school.
But a dreaming's all about connecting people to their identity and their culture and just building confidence. When we leave the primary school, boys are going to high school and there's a gap. They're missing out. And look, if I can take a couple of young fellas and let them be the leaders, and then they can run the show.
Police are investigating the cause of a grass fire at Merriweather Heights yesterday. Emergency services were called to the fire on Gun Club Road just before 6 a.m. Fire and Rescue says the fire burnt a 70 by 40 metre area but was contained in half an hour. It says several fireworks boxes near the scene were set aside for police investigation. No homes were reported as being under threat. The Tomaree Head Summit Walk has reopened in the Port Stephens area after significant upgrades. The New South Wales National Parks and Wildlife Service says the upgrades included replacing an ageing steel stairway, widening and improving the track, and upgrading the loop walk to the World War II gun emplacements. The service says the upgrades will reduce congestion and improve the visitor experience to the major tourist attraction, which is visited by over 200,000 walkers each year. Turning to sport, in the NRL, Newcastle Knights coach Adam O'Brien says keeping the Bulldogs to 0 wasn't a fluke. The Knights have made history for the club, thrashing Canterbury Bankstown 66-0 yesterday in Sydney after running in 11 tries, including a hat-trick from Bradman Best. It followed a tough week and a 3-game losing streak, with questions raised about O'Brien's future as the coach. He says they've been working on their defence and it showed.
I don't think that's a fluke, the defensive stuff. I reckon that's been coming for a while, but I was proud of all of them. It was an emotional week for the team, for the club, for myself. So, yeah, just really proud to get the result. It's good to get a smile on everyone's faces for a couple of hours.
Meanwhile, Manly beat the Sydney Roosters 18-16 in a thrilling clash at Brookvale Oval to finish round 18 in yesterday's other NRL match. Queensland skipper Daly Cherry Evans starred in front of his home crowd, crossing for 2 tries in the first half. And Merriweather surfer Ryan Callanan has jumped 1 place on the World Surf League rankings after the latest tour event in Brazil. Callanan reached the semi-finals but was knocked out by fellow Aussie Ethan Ewing. The 31-year-old is 10th in the rankings with 2 more events left in the season. 2-time world champion Tyler Wright, who calls Newcastle home, lost to American Caitlin Summers in the final. Cloudy in the Hunter today, medium chance of showers on the coast. Newcastle heading for a top of 18 degrees, Scone 17 degrees.
Now, 2HD local news.
Michael Blackstone. Nearly half of a huge fund has been distributed to aid victims and families of last month's tragic Greta bus crash. 10 people died in the June 11 bus rollover. According to News Corp, $480,000 from the $1 million fund has been released. Money has reportedly gone to survivors and next of kin families, expected to be used for expenses and accommodation to travel to funerals. Lake Macquarie Council's removed 900 tonnes of sand from two of its most popular beaches in a bid to stay on top of access and amenities. The council moved the sand, lowering the height of the dune at Redhead Beach the week before last. Sand was starting to fill in around showers, bike racks and bins, and First Creek work is to start this month to fix a path linking that part of the beach to the main car park. Reconstruction of a Wobber house is said to get underway by year's end, but first Lake Macquarie Council is calling for tenders for the works. The historic building was badly damaged by fire in 2019 and has since had a new design approved, which will retain the historic facade and provide a more modern and diverse event space. And in sports news, Newcastle North Stars completed a clean sweep of the weekend's games at Hunter Ice Skating Stadium. Import Tanner Butler scored a hat-trick in yesterday's game against Melbourne Ice to help the home side edge the visitors out 4-3. For all your local news, go to 2hd.com.au.
Good afternoon, I'm Olivia Dillon with your 2 o'clock Hunter News Update. The Hunter's real estate industry has been rocked by allegations of widespread sexism, drug use and sexual harassment. The Newcastle Herald has revealed dozens of unnamed current and former workers from several agencies across the region have reported being inappropriately propositioned at work or at a corporate function. Newcastle-based real estate trainer and consultant George Rousseau says the fragmented nature of the industry means there's often little oversight in terms of worker health and safety. On its 100th day in government, State Labor says it's committed to delivering on key election promises for the Hunter and New South Wales. It's marked the occasion by committing to scrap the public sector wage cap by September, which was one of its key election promises. And the government says plans for the proposed Hunter Sports and Entertainment Precinct at Broadmeadow are under review. The site, which could feature up to 2,700 new apartments, is being tied to the region's housing crisis, as well as calls to extend Newcastle's light rail service. As the next stage of the John Hunter Health and Innovation Precinct gets underway today, it's expected the project will create 1,500 direct construction jobs. The $835 million project has the potential to increase ICU capacity at the hospital by 60%. New South Wales Health Minister Ryan Park says he looks forward to seeing the project progress.
I'm delighted that the first concrete has been poured and 600 tonnes of steel have been laid as a part of our massive investment into the John Hunter Innovation Precinct.
Renowned local surgeon and Newcastle University professor Dr. Kelvin Kong has been named the 2023 National NAIDOC Person of the Year. He's been praised for his work improving health and learning outcomes for Indigenous children experiencing hearing loss. Accepting the honour at a ceremony in Brisbane, Professor Kong took the time to recognise the theme of this year's NAIDOC Week celebrations.
For our elders who have done so much for us, I stand here before you because of the opportunity that you gave all of us. And it's just so pleasing to be here representing what you've done.
For the second year in a row, Corinbong has been named the Lake Macquarie suburb with the highest value of approved development. It comes with the median time to process a development application falling by close to 40%. Council's Manager of Development, Assessment and Certification, Amy Ridago, says there's been a number of key approvals,
which included residential development and a town centre worth up to $29 million.
Newcastle Airport has officially unveiled its new covered car park today. The 161-space car park features 6 electric vehicle charging stations and is fitted with solar panels which will be used to cover more than 30% of the airport's power needs. Pricing for passengers is a flat rate of $50 per day. And the Mark Hughes Foundation's NRL Beanie for Brain Cancer round has successfully raised $3.5 million. The organisation is also celebrating selling its 1 millionth beanie over the weekend. The money will go towards funding critical care nurses for brain cancer patients across the Hunter and the country and will be used to support a round of grants for research into the deadly disease. Founder Mark Hughes says they couldn't have achieved the milestone without the support of locals. To finance, the All Lords is up 32 points at 74.34. One Australian dollar is buying 66.55 US cents.
2NURFM Sport.
Young Knights Knights centre Bradman Best has been named to make his Origin debut at Accor Stadium next Wednesday. Jacob Saifiti could also appear for the side after being named on the bench. Veteran Tyson Frizzell has been dropped. Meantime, in clubland, Newcastle coach Adam O'Brien has held on to his job for now after his side mounted a 66-0 dredging of the Bulldogs. Jackson Hastings and Phoenix Crossland both took out doubles, while Bradman Best claimed his first NRL hat-trick. Coach Adam O'Brien says Best had a productive pre-season.
Went through a period there where he copped a bit of flack for going to Bali and building a refugee place. So didn't let him, he's a young bloke, didn't let it bother him and cracked on with things, so I'm really happy for him.
In local rugby league, Northern Hawks are anxiously awaiting the match review committee's decision on Scott Briggs' send-off in their 48-12 loss to Cessnock. And the Newcastle Falcons women's basketball side look to be on the road to the finals, edging out 2 wins in their weekend doubleheader. They defeated Sydney Comet 71-50 before a narrow 77-74 victory over Norths. And now you're up to date with the latest 2NURFM Hunter News.